really exciting. You sent me a copy of your book about 2 weeks ago, and first of all, that was very lucky to get a sneak peek into it before it's actually out and about. But it's so exciting to find something that's about exactly what I want to read. Not much housing isn't often written about, certainly not in this comprehensive way, focusing on really important market questions for the affordable housing. And it's often, there's a lot that's been written about housing rights, and about the imperative of engaging in housing. But I think what's so interesting about your book is that it really is focusing on how do we do this, and what are the opportunities in terms of different financial instruments, and how do we actually make the market work. Housing is such a special sector. It's not like buying milk. There's a whole market behind the production of the house that changes with the progress of economies. And that makes it so challenging and so interesting for all of us. So I'm thrilled with this book, and I will read it over the holiday season. And as I said, it has all the most important people in it who've written and joined you in the effort. So congratulations, really great.
Wow, thanks.
That is.
Thanks, and thanks for the lovely introduction. It was, it was a very long process. Me and my co-editor Daniel Rosas have been working on this for a couple of years, and but like you say, it's really the authors that we got together to write the chapters that make the book so impactful, because these are all really the top experts in this field, people who've been doing this for a very long time in a lot of different contexts. And that's one of the things that I've found, is that it's actually impossible to say, well, this model works here, so we'll just use it there. Everything is so contextual with housing, because you're talking about people's homes, where they live, their specific community, their specific economies. And so the housing needs to really be adaptive to those things. So it was fascinating to look around the world and see every place is different, every place is unique. And I think particularly in this time maybe of COVID, where we all feel like, oh, we're all in this same situation, it's important to realize that actually we're not all in this same situation. Everybody has a really unique situation that they're living in, and their housing has to reflect that. So I hope everybody will be interested in this book, at least everybody at this conference probably will be. It's called Taking Shelter, Housing Finance for the World's Poor, and it will be launched on the 19th, I think, of this month. And so it's from Practical Action Publishing. So if anybody's really interested, you could go and talk to Practical Action Publishing and get some advance copies. But yeah, so that's the book, and thanks for the opportunity to pitch that a little bit. Should I just introduce the session now, or do you want to say something else, Casey?
Absolutely. I just have a technical question I want to ask you. How many panelists will you have physically present today?
Well, there should be 4 who will be participating in the live Q&A after the pre-recorded interviews. I am not sure if they are all backstage or not. I know at least some of them are.
The reason I'm asking is that we have a limit of 5, which means I'm going to leave, and I'll put it all in your hands, and you can drive. Okay. That's fine.
As long as I'm fine with driving, as long as I don't have to do anything except speak.
Yes, exactly.
And it could also be, Casey, that one or other of the panelists couldn't, get on, and so we'll just have to see who's here at the end.
If you want me back, just call and I'll come in.
Okay, will do. Okay.
And then what I would recommend is maybe put the link to where to get your book in the chat. Do that.
Okay. I will do that. Absolutely. Okay, so I will sure.
And you can introduce the session and how it will all work. Okay.
Okay, and then somebody from your end is going to run the pre-recorded interviews, right? So I'll just say it. Okay, fine. Great.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And bye, Kesia, and hello to everybody else who's participating in this session. We decided to build this session around the theme of the day, which is how housing drives basic services. It's a very interesting idea that housing in and of itself is not just a shelter, but it's also a way for families to live better lives by having access to things like healthcare, education, clean water, sanitation, energy. All of these things that we use to make our lives better are in a way centered in the house. And if we don't have an adequate house, then we won't be able to access all of those other services. And so, as we just talked about in writing this book, I've fortunately had access to a lot of people that are doing really interesting work in the housing space, and there's a lot of innovation happening. So I wanted to take a look at some of that innovation and present it to you, of course, focusing on what's happening in Africa. And there's two kind of things to consider when we think about housing and housing finance. You have, on the one hand, the more traditional type of progressive building where people have a piece of land and maybe they already have a house and they're building on it. And those people tend to need services that allow them to continue to improve the existing structure. And that sometimes means adding on basic services like water and electricity and things like that. So how does that get financed? Well, that's more the traditional housing microfinance type of a product that is so important to large numbers of people, particularly in Africa and other emerging economies. So that's one on the one hand. On the other hand, you have this new concept that I think, like Kwango Kwaku, who was just presenting, was talking about actually providing a completely built house to somebody. And we have some examples of that are happening, and they're interesting. They tend to be small scale, but there is some innovation around how to scale that process through franchising. And so we decided to ask some of the housing franchise companies that are out there to participate in this session. And so we'll be presenting the example of one of those as well. So I guess what we want to do now, we have two pre-recorded interviews. One is between George Mugweru of Habitat for Humanity's Terwilliger Center for Innovation and Shelter, and Ruben Mwara, who is from World Vision Fund. Sorry. And George was speaking to Ruben about their products that provide financing for people who want to access services like water and electricity. So we'll run the tape, and then I'll be back to introduce the second clip.
Thank you so much, Ruben, for joining us from Vision Fund. We're happy to see you. So to start us off, you could share with us experience of Vision Fund in financing basic services and what kind of products you are offering to your customers.
Yeah, thank you, George. So Vision Fund, we look at basic services. We have strong in WASH, and also because we work with our partner and our founder, which is World Vision. And therefore, we look at the basic services as a means to improve the lives of children, because that's our mission, that we really focus on the well-being of children in the communities where we serve. And as you know, Vision Fund is an institution that focuses on rural people. And therefore, our customers are basically in the rural areas where you will find those challenges of basic services like water, sanitation, lack of hygiene, and the like. So our experience is that we still have a huge gap in terms of being able to meet the needs of the communities where we serve, either because the customers do not have the funds to be able to buy, for example, a water tank, or even maybe to put a harvesting solution for water. And therefore, the interventions that we bring, and therefore, we are just playing a role there. And we know we have other partners who are also in that space, but we water in that space, and we are working towards ensuring that this huge gap that is there, that we are able to meet that need, especially for water, because with water, you are able to solve a majority of issues that comes into households. Whether you're talking about personal hygiene, where you're talking of good health, especially for children, because they are able to drink clean water, or they are able to take a bath and wash their hands, as it were. So that is some of the work that we are doing, and we fund our clients through groups and also individuals. So we look at how we can be able to work together with groups in the communities. We train them, and also now we support them through the purchase of probably a water tank or provide a water harvesting solution. Yeah, so George, I think in a nutshell, I think that's what I would want to mention. Sorry, George, I can't hear you.
So with regards to financing your customers, what have you seen mostly? Are they taking these loans to say buy products, like water tanks, or is it for connecting to basic infrastructures, or is it for renewable energy, or what have you seen mostly as being demanded by your customer?
Yeah, thank you. The big demand for us is water harvesting. Whether you're looking at it from purchasing a water tank, I think that's for us. That's the major demand that we've seen coming from our clients. But we working with our partners, especially World Vision, who would go into a community and dig a borehole. Then we are also able to work with such kind of communities where they now connect the water to their connect source. But that is on a very controlled environment. We do not see it going large. It's not large scale right now, but it's an opportunity that is there that we see that we can be able to tap. But mostly, especially for water, is a water harvesting and therefore we're able to lend to them to buy a water tank. But also, when you look at lighting, we look at solar as a solution. So we are also able to offer a solar solution for lighting the house, and also probably for charging. And also right now we are looking at providing some solar solutions for agric water pumps, so that they're able to use that solar powered water pumps, so that they're able to get water to do irrigation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruben. My other question is, you being a microfinance institution and looking at the industry, what would you say are some of the success factors for a lender like yourself to be able to lend, provide financing for basic services? for customers who have the profile.
Yeah, thank you. I think the first thing I think is understanding the need of the customer, and I think for us as Vision Fund, that's where we tried to start from. But if you're able to understand the need, then you're able to work backward, so that the solution that we structure is not a solution that Vision Fund wants to push to the market, but it's a solution that has a pull effect, and customer need it, and because there is an established need in the community or in the household, that this is what we need. And we have very good examples where we have worked with communities even to structure a product with them, and then come back now and build that internally. We look at it that way, that if we are going to sort out or to solve the solution, the problems that are there in our communities, we must start by understanding who is this customer, what is the profile of the customer that we are in, where are they in life, and what are some of those things that they are looking for at that particular time. Yeah.
Thank you. Successes are good, but for lenders, are there some challenges and barriers that lenders need to be aware of if they are to finance this segment more successfully, especially around basic services and
Yes. Number one, of course, the biggest challenge for the category that we are dealing with, there are people who have seasonal incomes. So when you are structuring a financial product for them, there is need to factor in the seasonality of how their income comes, because either they are doing so many things. They are doing a business here, they are doing farming, they have a cow, and therefore they combine all this income so that they are able now to finance their loan. So that's a key thing to be able to look out for. And also, this is a category that normally is forgotten. And when you talk of the rural client, someone probably they do not have even a credit history, and therefore, even when you are assessing them, you have to look at other means of being able to establish their credit worthiness, so that you're able to provide them a solution. But to overcome some of those challenges, especially in credit worthiness and collateral, that's why we like grouping them, so that through the core guarantee mechanism, even someone who doesn't have a collateral, that the group itself can act as a social collateral for them to be able to access a loan. I think that, yeah. So, and also I think the other issue that we've noted in this category, if you do not provide them with the asset, you give them cash, the chance of diversion is very high. So we try as much as possible to work with partners who will provide that solution to them, as opposed to giving them cash. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. It's good that you mentioned about providing an asset, and I believe in this case is where, say for example, you would probably have to partner with a supplier, a solution, be it a water tank, or partnering with a computer, or as a financial institution, are there some adjustments to make in order to have successful partnerships, or are there certain problems that you face there that you feel that this still needs to be worked on, or is it all smooth and good working with these vendors and market actors? reach it.
Yeah, you're right. You know, in any relationship, there will always be some hiccups here and there. But I think it's how the intention of the two partners, what is it that they want to achieve at the end of the day. And for us, when we are looking for partners, we also look at partners who are more inclined to the social impact that they want to create in the community rather than the return that we are going to get from it. We see a return as a benefit that accrues after you provided the services to the customer. And partnership, initially, as an institution, we used to have so many partners, you know, this one providing this one providing this. But we changed our approach. We decided to look at a partner who has financial muscle, that even when we task them to provide and deliver such kind of assets to the remote places of the village, that they are able to do so. And so we are able to now knock off all these other partnerships and work with one that is capable, both financially, and also they're also looking at the social impact that they're creating, and also the affordability to the customer, even delivering the last mile to the home of the customer. So those are some of the things that we had to look out for, as opposed to working with all these, many of them, managing them becomes a challenge.
It's interesting you talked about model housing, you know, as a way of, you know, showcasing how, you know, these things are interrelated. I don't know whether you've seen any opportunities around integrating basic services with housing. As people build incrementally, are you seeing any indication that, you know, people want to integrate services? As we talked about model housing.
Yeah. Yes, it's something that we've seen work, that you know, you can improve on that home provides that base for our customer now to be able now to look at other basic needs. So if the house is a client has a house, then they are able to look at now I need to harvest water, so there is a way I can be able to do that. I need a good toilet. And some of them, what you've seen, they now want to move away from the Petra tree. They want to move to a bathroom that is inside the house, and we are able to support them to build the site and also provide a biodigester instead of a septic tank, because we realize that in Kenya we do not have a sewerage. Most of our homestays don't have a sewerage system, and a septic tank is expensive venture if you because every time you have to keep on cleaning it. But we provide a solution for, like for example, a biodigester, and that has a guarantee of about 60 years of use without any repair. So we are able to showcase those to our clients. But as you mentioned, this is very incremental. The kind of clients that we deal with, they start with one thing. Now I've sorted the issue of the house. What is the next thing I need to work on? Is it water? Is it the biodigester? Is it lighting for the home?
Patrick, I think you're on mute. We've heard nothing of this.
Is that it? Can you see me now? Can you hear me?
Can you start over?
Okay. Apologize. Yeah. Okay. So for others who are doing this, just so you know, sometimes the mute goes on without you actually muting it. So you have to be watching the little symbol down there. So the next clip is focused on an innovation in home construction and financing through franchising. So this is based on a model in Mexico, and we are fortunate to have with us some of the experts and pioneers in the field with us, and as well as some of the emerging entrepreneurs. So I'm going to introduce the next people that you'll see on the clip, and this is Julie McBride interviewing Francesco Piazzisi and Walter Tukahirwa. Sorry, you're right there, Walter, and I somehow forgot your last name. So this is so Julie is the CEO and founder of Stage 6, which is a social franchising consulting firm, and she's really one of the leading lights in bringing this technology to emerging markets. The idea behind franchising, of course, is that you take a proven model and you expand it through a franchise system. And that allows people that may not be the ones to come up with the idea, but they are perfectly capable of managing the business, and they can purchase the franchise and then manage the business, and leading to quick expansion and scale that you can't, it's very difficult to get, particularly in a field like housing. So Julie is going to be interviewing Francesco Piazzisi, who is the CEO of Echale, a company in Mexico that produces housing through a franchise model and also finances housing. And we're also going to be speaking with Walter Tukahirwa, who is purchasing the Echale franchise for Uganda. So he is a serial entrepreneur who has decided that the Echale model will work in Uganda, and we're going to hear from them about how this is going to happen. So let's watch the next clip.
So Francesco, you founded Echale some 25 years ago as a solution to Mexico's housing shortage. And your model has evolved over the years from a purely non-profit initiative to a for-profit social enterprising comprising three essential components. One, the housing construction business, two, the housing finance business, and three, the part of the business that provides housing subsidies for low-income people. Can you explain a little bit about how you arrived at this model, how it works, and what level of success you've had with it over the years?
Yes, for sure. We can go by one. First is housing construction. The housing deficit in the world, it's 1 billion people without an affordable home, which is a statistic. But a family without a home, that's a drama. That's a disgrace. Everything happens bad if you don't have a home where everything it's there, contains all the good situations of the world, of the life. And so housing construction so far has been taking the industry and build the homes and go away, the huge construction companies. So the Echale model, what's do is Echale brings the industry into the community and train the community in order that they can produce the material. It's a green material, and they start to learn how to build the home. They are not left by their own building the homes. They have all the engineers, architects, machinery, blueprints, calculations to have an adequate home according to the UN standards, to the SDG development goals. And that's the housing construction, goes there. We go into the community, and the house is designed according to the uses and traditions of the community. Each community is different, even though it's in the same country. Each community switches the way of living and the way the house has to be done, the home. So we do that. We have all the process to bring a house for that community in special. That's housing construction, and we create an industry in the community. We create skills into the community, and we create this huge economic spillover into the community in order that the community can grow. Then housing finance. Financing for housing all around the world, it's at hand if you are bankerized. If you have a mortgage with the bank and you have the means to reach a mortgage. So we have created a model. We have created a model that it's finance for housing. It's not microcredit. Microcredit is for other things. This is microcredit for housing, credit for housing into the communities, and comes from different parts of the same country as well as from abroad, bringing the finances to the people in order that people can have the money to build the home in one effort, not as is done in all the countries, that they take something like 10 to 15 years to build a house step by step, and finally they don't have an affordable home, adequate home, they don't have blueprints, they pay the most expensive housing and construction materials, etc. So finance comes at hand, and with that we create. And the finances are according as well to the family needs and to the community income and development. We can't charge the same amount of credit for a family that has 8 kids or than a new couple. It's completely different. And maybe they have a better income, so they want to pay more. It's interesting. People in the community, they don't want to have a debt for 15 and 25 years. They want to get out of the debt, and they want the home. We have to think that we all developing countries are patrimonial economies. And the first patrimony for any family, it's the home. And third, housing subsidies. We have also subsidies from abroad. We bring subsidies to the program because it's not only building a home for a family, it's providing a solution for the country and providing a solution for each community, in particular, bringing the community into the model. There is not sweat equity, that's important. Everybody has a wage, everybody's paid for the work that they have done. And how we arrived to this model? Well, we started 23 years ago with one home. And from there, we start to learn how to put the model together. And so far, we have built 50,000 homes and more than 250,000 home improvement, reaching more than 1 million people just in Mexico.
Thanks, Francesco. So, Walter, you visited Echele in Mexico about 1.5 years ago and felt convinced that the Echele model could solve the housing shortage problem in your country, Uganda. Since then, you've begun discussions with Francesco about acquiring the rights to replicate the Echele model in Uganda. What is it about this model that you find appealing, and in what ways do you think you will need to adapt it to your own country context?
Well, thank you. Also, thanks for hosting me and having me here. I think the Echele model is a key step in addressing the big housing shortage that we see in Uganda. And our housing shortage is partly due to the high cost of construction And when I talk about high costs, it's in terms of both time and money, because typically to construct a structure here, you'll spend quite a bit of money hiring very many informal type technicians, and also you have to supervise the structure yourself. Financing arrangements are not so good, and at best you'd have to come up with a significant amount of the funds required to construct. That has kept very many people away from home ownership, and yet when you look at it, there are better ways of doing it. The technology, the traditional methods of construction have not changed for a very long time. The newer methods have not exactly been cheap enough for most people to afford. And so that's what makes the Echale model appealing. There's a standardized way of home construction, which really brings in the cost to a decent, an affordable cost for the average Ugandan. And also the low costs, therefore, improve affordability. But also because you're working with developers, because you're working with lower costs, it provides better financing options to borrowers, i.e. homeowners, as they embark on this journey. And it's good that Francesco mentioned the idea around not having loans for a very long time. If you look at the maturity mismatch between, for many lenders, what has not attracted lenders to get into this sector is because they cannot raise the kind of liabilities that you'd need to do a classic standard mortgage. Therefore, they need to have, they can only access shorter term funds. And because of those shorter term funds, either the mortgage amount has to be small, or they'll only finance a small portion of a typical mortgage. In this case with the Echale, because the cost of funding or the cost of construction is low, much lower, it then brings in more players into to be able to provide financing arrangements, and then also lowers the cost of the mortgage payment. In fact, our idea and plan is to be able to match the loan repayment on a mortgage to exactly what someone would pay for rent. So that the only difference here is that they are taking ownership of a home after 10 or so years.
Thanks, Walter. So I just have one more question for both of you, and that is related to how other services can be integrated into the communities that are built around using the Echale system. And clearly the franchise model makes it easier for Francesco to expand his proven model into new markets, and for Walter to succeed in starting and growing his own social housing business in Uganda. My question is, what role do you think that the franchise model in particular can play in delivering essential services like safe drinking water, healthcare, clean energy, etc., to the people who are actually living in those communities?
Yes, just as Walter said, there is no order in how to provide housing for the most needed ones. So the thing is how to provide this order into the communities. As we said, and you have been to Mexico and you have checked it by yourself, if we go into a community, the needs are endless. So the new model of Echale, it's bringing all the SDGs into a community. Maybe there is a medical clinic nearby. Well, that SDG is fulfilled. We don't need to create an effort to have that SDG. For clean water, rain harvest and water purification, solar energy, good governance, good neighborhoods, etc. All the SDGs, we bring it together all now into a community.
Thanks, Francesco. Walter, do you have anything to add to that? especially as Walter, actually you own a safe drinking water franchise. Can you talk a little bit about how you think you could integrate your Jibu franchise into the system?
Yes, so I think the beauty with the franchising model is that it brings systems that work and businesses that work into a community. The biggest challenge you have in the developing world is not a lack of ideas. It's the ability to implement those ideas successfully. And this is where franchising is such a powerful model. So for instance, with the safe drinking water, the Jibu model, we're able to deliver water to customers within our area of operation. And the way it's been structured is that different entrepreneurs own territories in which they can sell water, and at a very, very affordable cost, very, very low. It's much cheaper than, say, boiling your own water. And it's safe drinking water, the right quality, the right standards, and that has been able to spread to, I think, 6 or so countries within sub-Saharan Africa. So the thing about franchising is that you have very many entrepreneurs. If I speak of Uganda, so many businesses. I think we're once ranked the 2nd most entrepreneurial country in the world, I think by The Economist several years ago. But so many of these businesses never live to their 5th birthday. So many of them fail. And it's simply because they are not able to implement systems and processes that can live beyond the founder or without the founder. You know, I always joke that, especially for goods businesses, that, you know, the founder has to sit either at the cash till or in the store, you know, watch everything. They cannot build systems to replace them. And therefore, as the business begins to scale, even for those that are successfully run, as they begin to scale, they end up struggling and collapsing under their own weight of their expansion. So franchising does that. It can work well. We've seen it work for safe drinking water, certainly for health, because there you need standards. You need many of these things. You don't need to reinvent the wheel in, you know, delivery of basic healthcare. We've seen it work for schools. So it's something which I think for more and more entrepreneurs or investors out there, something that they need to look at as a way to empower youth, especially in the low-income countries.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I remembered to turn the mute button off. So thanks for the prompt. I think now what we're going to do is to ask those panelists that are with us to join in a live panel discussion. So if the admin could add in Julie, Walter, Francesco, George, and Ruben, that would be great. I think Ruben may not be with us, but I think the others are here. Okay, Francesco and George, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Hi. I'm very well. How are you?
Hi, Patrick. Hi, Francesco.
Hi, George. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
This is the beauty of technology. It's incredible. We're all like sitting in different parts of the world, Mexico, Kenya. I'm in Vermont in the United States. There's a foot of snow in the ground, and we're just chatting. So that's great. And now it looks like Julie is joining us. So Julie McBride is from Washington, D.C.
Hello.
So I think the first question that I wanted to ask, there is one of the things that came up in the interviews was this issue of rural versus urban, and there were some comments in the chat about group-based collateral, and I wonder if you could both talk about it, George, maybe from the perspective of a microfinance institution, how you can lend to rural areas, And Francesco, then maybe if you could talk about your particular model and how that has worked in rural areas, particularly maybe focusing on how you can finance the housing in those rural areas. George?
So thank you, Patrick. Yeah, it's true that in most microfinance models still use a group-based model, especially in rural areas. And one of the advantages is that in most of the rural parts of Africa, for example, people know each other, and it's easier to have this kind of social capital where people have a lot of trust and confidence amongst themselves. And then it becomes much easier for them to do the co-guarantee. But also to say that co-guarantee is not necessarily what you'd call a credit tick that once you are co-guaranteed, people would pay. I think a lot of it has to do with the social pressure, where people feel an obligation to be part of a community, to be part of the group, and they feel obligated to meet their payments. And I think that's the reason as to why this model has worked. And when it comes to urban centers, it becomes a bit dicey and complicated. But it has worked, especially because in those rural communities, people, for example, would not have a lot of collateral, especially land, because land is either communally owned or it's only one member of the family, and it is therefore not possible to provide land as collateral. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And this gets back to the issue that I brought up in the beginning about how every community is different, and how every community needs the products and services and methodologies that work in one community won't necessarily work in another place. And so I really believe that this issue of if we're looking into rural areas, we need to find particular solutions. Francesco, how has that worked with Echale?
Yes, let me talk a little about what's going on in Mexico through rural housing, especially. We started, as I said in the interview, we started with one home 23 years ago. And now the thing is that we go to all rural communities, and the problem of the collateral is the same. They don't have a collateral, and they are not bancarized, the families at the communities, even though we serve around 1 million people in Mexico. The collateral, it's more social organization than a physical collateral or a liquid collateral, and has been working great. We started with dispersed housing, going into a community and taking the precarious carton board homes and transform it to adequate homes. And now we are more working in little or smaller developments where we reach the land by donation, or the government bring it, or the community gets around an idea to put their piece of land and maybe adjust it to the needs to create a small community of 50, 100 or 500 homes. And the program, mainly it's saving. People save 10% of the cost of the home. Credit. The credit comes from financial intermediaries, national and international, and subsidy. Subsidy as well comes from different organizations, international, and the federal government, state government, and the municipality. Sometimes the municipality provides the land or the services, as well as the state government, and the federation as subsidy. Subsidy, as every part of the world, are today they are here, tomorrow they are not there, but it's not the main part of the equation. The main part of the equation, it's social organization and providing the people the opportunity to have a home. We have a portfolio And in this portfolio, our default, it's less than 1%. It's 0.9%, something like that. That people that migrates or change the community. And in the world, 41% of the inhabitants still live in a community. And this mad idea to bring everybody into the cities, I mean, I really don't. I'm into it. People live in the communities and they want to be in a community, and they have the family and the development there, and the traditions and the politics and the market and everything. And that's how it's work. And we have been polishing this model in order to bring it abroad. And the idea is to bring it through a franchise, through us with HL International, with Julie and Walter, and bring it to Uganda with all the effort that we can provide to bring it to Uganda, and not as a huge development worldwide. No, an organic growth. It's a systemic growth. We have to go to Uganda, and Uganda has to be the showroom for other countries around it, and so on and so on.
Maybe I can just ask Julie to expand on that a little bit, because one of the things that we often see or think of when we think of franchising are big, very cookie cutter models where you take the same company and you just replicate. And I wonder if you can help explain how a franchise model can be customized to local conditions. And just before you begin, I have to apologize, because I think Walter Tukahirwa, who is the HLA franchisor in Uganda, is with us, but he's having some technical difficulties, so we're hoping to get him on. But Julie, can you maybe speak to that?
Yes. So it's not just that franchising can be tailored or customized to local markets, franchises, but they must be. And one of the reasons that business owners choose franchising as the model for scaling is because what franchising is essentially providing somebody who lives in that community with a business ownership opportunity. And since they know their communities, they are positioned to tailor the business model to the specific needs of the community so that the business will succeed. So every successful business owner knows that there is no one size fits all, but that there is like a basic structure that should work. And if that basic structure of the business works, then there's room for tailoring it to the specifics of the community. And somebody in that community is much better positioned to do that work of tailoring it than an outsider. And so that's one of the driving forces behind franchising, is using local people to own and operate and customize those businesses to the needs of the people in those communities. So it's very much I like to say a take and tailor business, a customizable business expansion model.
Great. And George, so that franchising is one way. Microfinance, of course, has had huge success in providing financing to previously unbanked populations. Maybe can you help us explain a little bit how microfinance can also localize specifically for housing needs?
Yeah, microfinance play a very important role because, over the years, they've really been able to understand this segment of the population, and they have, kind of banked a very good criteria of serving this population. And therefore, even when it comes to housing, it becomes an easier jump because microfinance are able to adopt alternative housing mechanisms as opposed to the conventional housing finance, which is very limited in terms of reaching the population. And so housing microfinance is that model that works mostly using microfinance principles, but it's focused out, and then it's easier for a lot of these microfinance institutions to adopt this. But I also want to mention, Patrick, that with regards to microfinance, there's also been a lot of evolving and change. If you look at, for example, the landscape we have in Kenya now, digital financial services has fairly also occupied a huge space with regards to access to finance, and has been able to move beyond the challenges of collateral, as it were, because increasingly digital financial services have been able to use transaction data and sharing of credit or credit referencing to be able to rate people and provide credit. And then that is also reaching a lot of people, and I think we are yet to see what that space will do, because even when it comes to housing and digital finance is one of the areas that have not really moved forward, but hopefully this will be it, because people can be able to use the normal transactions they have, because people are really using mobile phone to purchase basic goods, and that can then be used to rate them and know how much money one can be able to access. Yeah.
That's really true. Okay, Walter, you've joined us. Can you hear us?
Welcome,
Walter. Walter seems to be having some technical difficulties, but so just while he's getting set up, that issue of scale is actually one of the reasons that I think franchising has been so successful, is because it's able to scale in the same way maybe that digital financial services have allowed microfinance to scale into communities that previously they wouldn't have been able to access. And I wonder, Francesco, if you can say something about that. In your financing model, do you use digital financial services, or how do you ensure that the clients are creditworthy?
Yes, we use something like a couple of years now, financial services through iPhones, electronics, and so on, and people has a very good reception of them. We have to think that we are in a market, in a target population, where the market don't come to us. We have to go to the market. And as well, at the beginning, when the finances, people said, we go into the community, say, you have not paid. And they said, no one comes to collect the money. It's completely different. Simply the way of thinking of the financial structure. So we use it, and people has really a very good reception on it. And another thing is that the origination of the credit, we do it home by home. It's not a place that they go there and a booth that they go there and ask for the credit for the home. We go with the family. We know how, we look how they live, where the incomes comes from, and we establish a relation with the community, and the community establish a relation among them through housing, through the idea of having a home. Communities all around the world are organized for politics, religion, the festival of the town, and that's it, and the market, but not through housing. And organize people through housing, it's not organize them only for the construction of the home. It's also organize them for the economic spillover that the housing construction provides, and well as the finance. The finance is not only the financing the home, it's financing a lot of things around the community and have adequate homes for everybody. We always said the home is not just from the door inside. The home is also from the door outside, and we have to put together. So everything, there are different axes. One axle is social, one axle is construction, and one axle is financing. And we put them all together and works.
Thanks, Francesco. And you know, that's an interesting component, but what you're talking about to me sounds very formal. And we have a question here about how can franchising compete with the informal sector? And I think maybe we can ask Walter to comment on that, since I think so. The question is from somebody from Tanzania, but I think Uganda will have a very similar situation in that you have very large informal sector. And how can a housing franchise like HLA compete with the informal sector? Walter, Walter, I think Walter might be frozen. So maybe I can ask Julie to respond.
Sure.
Or Francesco, if you've addressed that.
Yeah. I can take a stab at it, and then Francesco as well. But just from my own perspective, in my opinion, it's not necessarily competing, but it's franchising is offering alternatives to people who might otherwise be working in the informal sector. So better alternatives. Again, all franchising is a model. It's a business model that's used to expand proven businesses, and it works when the person who founded the original concept, the original business, they sort of spent 5 years figuring out how to make this thing work. They went through all of the time and energy and money that goes into starting a business and making it successful, like Francesco did with HLA for 25 years. So he finally, figured out how to make this thing work. Now, what franchising does is essentially hands that over to another person who wants to run a successful business. Now, they don't have to go through all of the effort, all of the time and pain and energy of trying to create a business from scratch. They get to start from a place where the business has succeeded. And I think especially in the informal sector, it really makes it a much less risky proposition for an entrepreneur to start with a successful business model and build on that rather than having to start from scratch. I think it also makes it easier for that entrepreneur to get access to capital that they need to operate the business, because the lender is lending to a business that's already been proven in other markets, and it's less risky to the lender. And I'll just say one more thing and then I'll stop. It's also less risky to both the lender and the entrepreneur, this model, because not only are they purchasing the right to own and operate a proven business, but they're getting access to ongoing training and support from that original business owner in how to run the business. So there's this sort of like this ongoing access to the help that an entrepreneur needs to run a successful business. So yeah, I guess in sum, I don't see it as competition. I see it as a way to as an offering to people who otherwise might be working in the informal sector.
Okay, and again, I apologize. We can see Walter, but for some reason he can't see or hear us. So maybe this will be the last question, because there's an interesting comment about building community, and I know that that's something that all of you have been involved with in various ways. So maybe I can just ask each of you to talk a little bit about that. So Francesco, maybe, and Walter, can you hear me? No, Walter is still not able to hear. So Francesco, maybe can you talk about a little bit about how the HLA model is building communities in addition to just housing?
Yes, we through the years and the efforts to bring adequate housing for the communities, the last thing that we are doing now is bringing all the SDGs, the UN SDGs, into the community, in order that we don't only are providing adequate homes, we are providing a solution for the people. We have the first SDG community that fulfills the 17 SDGs in Southeast Mexico, and it's going on, and we have opened already 3 of them. The important thing and the important question about the Friend of Tanzania is that it's not formal at all. It's as Julie said, it's completely informal. It's each community is different, and each community it's informal, and each community has their own players. It's not, as I said, that we are going to bring a huge solution for everybody. Not at all. It's completely different. Each community is going to be developed by the same, with the family, by the families, and for the family. That's how it works, actually. And that's what we create now. We don't think only about a house. It's more a home, and it's not more a home. It's homes all together in order that we create a community. And it's not only fulfill the need of a shelter and a patrimony, and convert this credit into a patrimony for the people of the families in the community. It's to convert the community in a sustainable community for the rest of the history.
And I think, I want to bring George in a minute, but can I just ask quickly, Walter, can you hear us now? It seems like Walter's still having technical difficulties. But George, I wanted to just ask you, because you've been involved in building communities from the financing side, as well as now from more the market development side. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how home can be the basis for a community, and how can the different parts of the basic needs that are required in a community be financed and brought in and brought together. And I'll just say, I'm thinking about this because I know in a lot of cases, communities have been attempted to be built by taking a piece of land, building a lot of houses on them, and saying, okay, there you go, there's your community, and it hasn't worked. And it hasn't worked because you haven't had a lot of the other services that make a community. And so, George, I'm curious, you've been active in this field for so long. What are your thoughts on that?
So thank you, Patrick. Yeah, it's true. And I really concur with the Francesco idea that, we are not talking about housing. It's more of a home, because, home is where people live, not necessarily in houses. And a home is within a community. And it's very important to think, even when you're thinking about financing, how all these pieces are interlinked. I do remember when we started working on housing finance, our focus was really on financing, supporting financial institutions to lend for housing. But soon we realized, you have also to think about other market actors, because if you provide financing, you have to think of how do people get source for materials, for example? How do people get quality labor? How do people, get basic services? And most important, also to think about livelihoods, because housing is not a place where people just lodge. It's connected to their form of livelihoods, and all these aspects needs to be put in place. And one of the other pieces that came as a very important aspect is also to develop the market so that the market can also serve the low-income population, not only finance, but thinking about other segments. How can you, how can material suppliers, for example, be motivated to serve the low-income population so that when people get money, they can be able to link that money with quality material, with quality labor, and that way you are helping people to build more decently and affordably. Yeah, thank you.
And so, Walter, are you with us? I really have some questions I'd love to ask Walter.
Maybe
but it seems like
maybe you could type.
Technical.
I don't know. Yeah.
But but maybe I can ask you this question, Julie, because you alluded to it earlier. George was just talking about bringing in quality materials and having systems in place to ensure that those materials are appropriate and affordable for people. When you look at a community like, say, that Echale is building, how can franchises that work in other areas, not necessarily in housing, engage in that community? Is that something that happens? I see some comments here about needing master plans for communities and things like that. Is that something that comes in early on? You sort of say, okay, this is going to be a franchise community, and we're going to have the housing franchise and the water franchise and the power franchise, education franchise, healthcare franchise, or is this something that happens more organically? Can you just describe how franchising fits into this idea of community that we seem to be focusing on?
Yeah, I think, like Francesco was saying earlier, it doesn't necessarily have to be, all franchises. I think what franchising does is it just, when there's a gap in the, let's just say the needs, we'll talk about the marketplace as being like that community that's anchored around housing, let's say 100 houses inhabited by 100 families, that community has needs. And if those needs aren't met, what we can do is one way that we can help that community meet their needs is by providing them with the opportunity to own and operate a business that delivers those needs. And what's really the beauty of franchising is that it's not just providing products and services to that community, but it's enabling the community, giving somebody in that community the opportunity to make a living by delivering those products and services to the community. So you're creating business ownership opportunities in the community, jobs in that community because that business needs to hire people, and meeting people's basic needs in that community because the business is actually delivering products and services that meet people's basic needs in that community. And so what we're doing at Stage 6 is essentially we're creating a portfolio of franchises, which are what we're calling basic needs franchises, so that when we go into a community and build a community using the Echale model, then people have the option, if there isn't a water system, for example, they can sort of shop from our portfolio, pick a franchise that can be plugged into that community, that someone from that community can own and operate. And so, the example of how we're doing this is with Walter right now. So we're taking that Echale model from Mexico and we're giving it to Walter to run in Uganda. Walter's role, and we're having Walter do it because he's Ugandan. He lives there. He knows the Uganda context. I don't. Francesco doesn't. But Francesco knows the Echale business model. I know the franchise model. So we're going to support Walter. We're going to help him get that business up and running in Uganda. And then once he builds that first community, he's then going to look at, okay, how do we make sure that everybody in this community has access to healthcare and water and sanitation and clean energy? And we're going to be able to offer options to people in that community. And one will be his water franchise. So somebody in that community actually could own and operate a water franchise. and they have a way of earning an income by serving the needs of people in that community. So I think there's a really exciting opportunity here to build not just sustainable communities because everybody has their basic needs met, but sustainable communities because more people are making a living by delivering products and services that benefit the community. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does. There are so many needs in a community, and I guess I was just wondering where franchising fits in. And obviously, it seems to me like if franchising is going to work to do that, to bring all these different services to the community, there need to be a lot more franchises, because I just don't think you don't see that many.
Well, and that's what we're doing. So we're going out there and we're searching for those business models that are working. So we're going like in Africa. So I actually have been on this search for a healthcare model, a healthcare business that's both profitable and delivering high quality services to low income people. And I found one in Kenya that ticks all those boxes. And again, when you think about franchising, what you're doing is you're offering somebody the opportunity to own and operate a business. If that business isn't profitable, why would anybody want to own and operate it? So it's not, you have to meet certain requirements. And if you find a business that ticks all those boxes and they're interested in scaling, then you can work with them on developing that sort of second business of franchising the original business. So again, like I've been around the world and I've seen that there are a lot of similar needs, and I've also seen that there are solutions to those needs that have been developed locally and in a way that's profitable to the business owner. Those are the concepts that we're looking for, and we're looking to turn them into franchises so that more people have the opportunity to own and operate a successful business that's delivering social value to the community.
Yeah, Patrick, I just wanted to add a small comment.
Yes, George.
To business, to say, in an area like housing, where innovation is still not there, there are certain opportunities to also look for idea stage companies and also early stage companies, and work with them to reach to a place where they could scale some of their solution. Because I know we've run an accelerator. It was not very easy to even identify like fairly good businesses that are providing solutions for low-income populations. So I think there's also opportunities to see how do we encourage startups and early stage companies to also work on this road. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we're going to have to leave it there. We're a little bit over time, but I really want to thank all of the panelists, Francesco, George, and Julie, as well as those who couldn't make it into the live Q&A, Walter Tukahirwa and Ruben Mara. So if anybody who's listening or watching has any questions for them, feel free to message them directly. And I think I'll turn it back over to Kesia if she's there. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and congratulations for the book.
Thanks, Francesco. Thanks.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you. What a great conversation. That was really so interesting. I think it was a great advert for your book to be able to go into much more detail to engage with that. That's exciting. And so many interesting ideas and people picking up on the questions and the comments. So Patrick, I hope you pursue those with your colleagues outside this session. Thank you very much for that. It was really great.
Will do. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for having me and for letting me moderate the session, and for a great conference. And good luck for the next few days.
Wonderful.